I think the biggest breakthrough is just the confidence that I gained. The entire process was like a confidence booster and proved to myself that I could do it. And that in itself is golden because the overarching thing that I wanted was like the confidence in speaking articulately about what I do professionally and others to see that value. And I
Yeah.
feel 100 steps above where I was 3 months ago.
What's it been like in LA? We've been having these snowstorms in Virginia and people are freaking out. And being from Michigan, I'm like, this is not a big deal.
Yeah, this time of year in Los Angeles, it's pretty like we basically get two weathers. We get sunny, well, maybe yeah, three weathers. We get sunny, we get rainy, or we get overcast. And rainy and overcast are pretty rare, at least certain years. Certain years it's El Nino and it's more rainy than usual. But so right now it's sunny, it's like mid 70s maybe. Yeah.
I think I said this to you. I'm like, we have this joke, California's a lie. Because it was in some song. I forget if it was like, I don't know, some John Mayer song or something. It's like California is a lie. And we've had a few good friends and family members living in Southern California and the Bay Area.
Mm.
And when we go visit them, they're like, oh, you're going to love the weather. And then it's just overcast that marine layer. No one mentioned that.
And it feels like that happens. Like my sister, she lives in Portland, Oregon, where it rains all the time.
Yeah.
So when she comes down to LA, she's hoping for the sun. And
Yeah.
then inevitably when she comes, it rains. She's like, what?
I
You
know.
know?
Of course. That's exactly what happens. But yeah, generally nice weather. I mean, I do have a friend from the Midwest and he was like, yeah, we love it. We'll never leave, but we miss the seasons because it kind of makes you appreciate the nice weather more when you've got, coming out of winter or whatever. But okay, so let's dive in.
My name's Paul Matsushima. I live in the Los Angeles, California area. I recently started a business called Matsushima Consulting. I help nonprofits streamline and optimize their operations and helping them build better systems and processes. So I started that company under Steve's guidance and Greenhouse Coaching's guidance through the Business Builders class. But professionally, before I started the business, I had worked in nonprofit for most of my career. I was always kind of more of a generalist. I was good at learning and picking up new skills, and I could do a little bit of everything. Like if my boss or supervisor was like, hey, we have this problem, we need to figure out how to fix it, or we have this issue, we need to figure out how to address it. It was always, Paul, you go after it and figure it out. And they would give me very little direction, and I would take that and be like, okay, I'll figure it out. One colleague used to call me the plumber because essentially anytime there was like a bottleneck or a clog or some issue that came up, they would be like, Paul, go figure it out. And I would figure it out.
Another person in the group said people call them the fixer. And I laughed so loud because the night before I had watched a show that was like espionage, whatever. And the fixer was like the person who, like calls away the dead bodies or something. And I was like, I don't know if you want to use that word. Yeah, it's funny. Well, for people listening, like Paul said when he came to Greenhouse, what you said was like something like, how do you know me? Have you been listening to my conversations? How do you know me so well? And I laughed because, yeah, it's the irony that generalists, we feel isolated and alone. Like, man, I'm the only one who doesn't know how to describe what I do and how to like articulate my value. And yet we all feel that same tension. And so it's weird because on a team, people value you so much for being the plumber. It's like, oh my gosh, you're the best, you're our favorite team member. But then when you go to start a business, get clients or try to get a job, it's like suddenly you feel like you have no value because you can't articulate it clearly.
Yeah.
So you actually started working with Chris on the team on your like personal pitch, your elevator pitch. And then that kind of led into working on the business. But yeah, I don't mean to cut you off. Maybe share more of that part of the story.
Yeah, for sure. I used to get really jealous of others. Like, for instance, my wife is a nurse and my sister's a librarian, and they have very specific jobs that like you tell someone, oh, you're a teacher, they instantly know. Then they can imagine what you do, right? Or you tell them, I'm a nurse, and you instantly think of all the nurses you've seen on TV and when you've been in the hospital yourself, and you have a sense of what they do and what their day-to-day looks like, right?
Yeah.
But I would always be like, oh yeah, I work in higher ed and I'm in operations, and I would mumble off all these buzzwords that make sense in my context, but
Yeah.
for other people who aren't familiar with that world, like they're like operations, that can mean one of 100 things. And, you say software, that could mean one of 100 things as well, right? And
Yeah.
so it was always like I would get blank stares and people would instantly change the subject. So that's been
Totally.
like a lifelong challenge for me. And when I heard the Generalist is a skill video content, the video or podcast, whatever it was, it just like that, it just spoke to me. Like that was like the primary issue that I've always had. And I feel like I've talked to others, like, I've had business mentors and professional people and the past supervisors, people like that,
Hmm.
who I've kind of chatted with a little bit about that. And some people
Hmm.
were understanding, but like no one really kind of pinpointed the particular issue in the way that Greenhouse did. Um, because you just laid it out so articulately. And so to kind of transition to how I worked with you and Chris. So I started with Chris as I think it was the personal brand elevator pitch statement where, Chris really helps you walk through like, okay, let's think about your past experiences and your background and your skill set and where you think you're going professionally. And let's package all that up into like, various versions where there's the one sentence version, there's the 2-minute version, there's the 30-minute conversation version.
Yeah.
And so that was really helpful because uh, I was also kind of in like job transition where I was working in a job that wasn't a great fit for me, and I was thinking about transitioning, and I was like had no clue what was next. And because I didn't want to land in another job that was like an okay fit, but it wasn't a great fit, where it'd be, yeah, okay. And it would be job security and it would generally like my day to day would be okay. But it wasn't something that I would like wake up every day feeling like, oh man, I found kind of my calling or
Yeah.
the thing in life that I want to dedicate myself to for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And so I was in this kind of pivotal place where I was like, I don't really know what I'm going to do next because I'm in a job I don't, that's not a good fit. And I have a hard time kind of articulating my value. So yeah, working with Chris helped clarify a lot of that.
Hmm.
And I still like, I have a sense of the general pitch, but like, I wouldn't say it's like, of course, nothing's going to ever be 100%. But so like, it definitely gave me like a tool set to use to like be more prepared and be more confident when, that inevitable question comes up of what do you do?
I
Or,
know, because that's the worst when it comes up. It hits you unexpectedly. It's one thing when
yeah,
you're going into a meeting
exactly.
preparing for that, but when it's just at a gathering or party and it's like, oh God, what do I say?
Yeah.
And then you just start saying weird stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Or if it's
But
at like yeah, no, go ahead.
I
Sorry.
was gonna say though, when we hopped on and you shared what you do, I was like, yes, let's go. This was perfect. Like way, way more clear than, thinking back to when we started. But also your confidence level was really high. Like you could tell it was just kind of coming out naturally. You weren't having to reach for the words. So I know what you mean. I still feel like I can't do it perfectly either. But that was really good when you shared it here.
Thanks.
I mean, what we talked about a lot is if you can articulate it, the goal is to articulate it in a way where the listener instantly starts to have things click in their brain, like who they should connect you with or what problems you might be able to solve for them. And it's like, as much as we hate it as generalists and entrepreneurs, we don't want to be put in a box. But in this moment, you need them to put you in a box because it's the only way they'll make sense of what you do and how to plug you in somewhere. What's nice about the way you shared yours is instantly it's like, okay, I get what you do. I can picture like maybe where you would plug in. And now I can start to connect you with certain people or opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about the like job or business question. Cause I think that's when you were transitioning from working with Chris to the business builder program, it was that kind of tension. Should I get a new job, pursue that route? Should I start my own thing? What would that look like? Cause I think that resonates with a lot of people who come to a program like this. You'd think on the surface, like everyone's already got a business, they're crushing it, they're clear. And it's not true. Like a lot of people are still trying to figure out what they want to be when they grow up and if the business is the right thing for them. And some people are even like dabbling it on the side. There was someone messaging me on Instagram the other day and she's still got a corporate job she's started her coaching business and she's trying to decide, like, do I go all in on this or not? And can I? Like, is it viable? Is it profitable enough? So talk a little bit about that, wrestling with that question.
Yeah. So I think the reason I started with Chris with a personal brand statement was because I thought it would give me a little bit of time to wrestle with that question before we jumped into the business builder coaching portion. Cause yeah, I was in that same boat. I was wrestling with, should I start up my own business? And if so, will it be profitable? Will I make enough to be able to support the family or at least contribute financially to the family?
Yeah.
I went into the business coaching process kind of with the goal of I'm going to give myself a couple months to try it out and to take a risk and to see if it is viable and if I could see myself doing this long term. Because again, like I was in between, like I was about to thinking about quitting a job and I ended up where I did quit that job.
Uh-huh.
And it was kind of a big risk, but at least practically, like our family was in a place where like my wife works full time. We're on her benefits already. We had some savings. And so we were in a place where we could take that risk. And it wasn't as important for me to be the main breadwinner.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, like, I did the business builder coaching. It was super helpful to like, cause in the beginning you're like, where do I start? There's a million
Yeah.
places you could start. You could start a website. You could start a social media presence. You could start meeting with, potential clients. You could, all the assets you got to build, like a template for contracts and an invoice template and whatever. Right. And so there's like a million different avenues you could go down. And so the business builder really helped focus me because I was like, I don't really know where to start. I have a lot of professional experience where like, I like my professional experience was almost like, cause building business operations from the ground up. Right. So I knew how to like do all the things to get a business going, but I didn't really know like how to bring in revenue, how to
Yeah.
build relationships with new clients so that like people would trust me enough to hire me. Cause my business is not so much like, oh, I'm going to buy like a $5 trinket from you and then, kind of be an ongoing customer like that. It's more of like, I'm going to partner with you for like a couple months at a time and each contract could be multi-$1,000s, right? And so it's
Yeah.
like a big jump for clients to go from 0 to $5,000 all at once, right?
Yeah.
And so working through the business builders, it helped me kind of to get real focused because
Uh,
again, like there are a million avenues to go down. And then it also helped anytime I had a real live issue where, like how do I create a proposal? How do I think about pricing?
yeah.
Like if I start working with a client and they ask me to do a project I've never worked on before, how do I kind of frame it to make myself sound confident? Like,
Yeah.
cause my whole MO is like, I'm good at solving problems that no one else knows how to solve. And a lot of times those are brand new problems, right?
Yeah.
That I don't have experience in, but I'm good at like doing the research and talking to the right
Yeah.
people and
The
kind of laying
generalist
out the
problem
steps. Yeah,
again.
exactly. The generalist
Yeah.
problems, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that was really fun, by the way, just the way you always showed up with really specific questions. Like, all right, here's a real time thing happening. Like, let's workshop this. And I really enjoy that too. Like, just workshopping it together and kind of like solving things in real time, getting clarity. I mean, where did you find the focus? You said, all right, this work helped you get focus of where to start. Where did that focus lie for you?
Yeah, I think the temptation when you're starting a business, and I'm pretty sure you talk about this in some of your online content, is you can waste a lot of time with things that don't make a difference, right? Like you can spend a million hours perfecting your website or building
My
an
gosh, yeah.
Instagram page when you don't have an audience yet and you don't have people actually viewing that stuff. And so you you waste like tens of or dozens or hundreds of hours perfecting this thing that no one except you sees, or maybe you share it with the few people that are close to you in your life and they see it too. But in reality, like that stuff doesn't really move the needle. And so like the greenhouse ethos was very helpful because you kind of were like, okay, in the beginning, set aside all that stuff. Yes, eventually it will play its part. But at least right now, what really matters is like networking and putting yourself out there and making those connections and not doing it in a salesy or pushy or pressury way where like it makes the other person feel uncomfortable. Cause I mean, we've all been in those situations where you meet with someone and then all of a sudden they drop something where they have an ask of
Word,
you and you're just like, oh, like, I do
word
not want to do that. Right.
is the worst.
Yeah, yeah, but you kind of feel obligated because they're your friend or whatever, and you're just like, okay, I'll do it. Really, you're like gritting your teeth the whole time.
I know. I remember when I left the corporate world, started a business, that was my number one thing I despised. I'm like, I hate anything that feels even remotely salesy. And then fast forward a few years and I was like, wait a minute, am I becoming that guy? Like, because I think I had a few conversations early on, I just hadn't dialed it in and I was being that way. There's so much to focus on. And you're right, it's the topic I get the most like hate trolling on from people online is when I say you don't need a website to start. And it's exactly what you said. It's because we want to hide in the tasks that are easier in our control. I mean, it's easy to sit behind my laptop and click stuff. It's a lot harder to put myself out there. And so, but yeah, I mean, I did it too. I wasted time on that stuff that did not bring in revenue. And then one day I'm like, oh, I need more money.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
And I will say, like, I'm a pretty big introvert, so networking and putting myself out there is very difficult for me, or it's not. I don't find it natural, and I'm sure a lot of extroverts don't find that natural because
yeah,
it's different from like getting coffee with a friend, right? It's a different type of networking. But I think the approach that you and Greenhouse promote, which is you're not necessarily asking them to meet to like sell them something. It's more of, hey, I want to meet to connect and tell you what I'm up to, right? And then yeah, you can make an ask of them, but the ask is pretty simple. It's, hey, people, I told you about my business. Would you be willing to introduce me to a friend or a colleague who might have the issue that my business can solve, right? That's a
yeah,
much easier ask. And like in the beginning, I was very scared to do it and I was uncomfortable and I was doing the website building and
yeah,
clicking because it was things I could control. But
yeah,
eventually I came to a point where I was like, I really need to put myself out there and start doing it. And I
yeah,
started doing it. And yeah, it was uncomfortable in the beginning, and it still feels uncomfortable to a certain point, but it got easier and it is getting easier. And I feel like I found a rhythm. Like I do them early in the morning because
mm,
then I could just kind of get it over with. And because if
hmm,
I do it in the afternoon or, later in the day, like I'm kind of fretting about it, worrying about it all day. And I can't really focus on other things I need to get done. So I tend to do them early in the morning when I feel fresh and I could just get it over with. And then the rest of the day I have free. And I kind of bunch them together as well when they're back to back. And so like
yeah,
doing little things like that really help kind of get over some of that fear. Cause I know
yeah,
you probably have a lot of listeners out there who are in a similar boat as me where they don't like networking. They feel uncomfortable because that's like a reality for me, but like it did get easier and it does get easier and it's
yeah,
still, I think when you're in the trenches, it's easy to have kind of a narrow focus where you don't feel like you're moving the needle and you're like putting in all because to get a single client can be a lot of work and there's a lot of back and forth and it could get drawn out over a month or two or even
uh-huh,
longer than that. And so yeah, when you're in the thick of it, it's hard to like kind of zoom out and reflect and be retrospective about the progress you have made. But probably in the first 3 months, yeah, I think I'm at 6 or 7 clients now and it's been about 3 months.
come on.
Yeah.
I mean, well, that's the thing. I had to keep doing this with you. Like, all right, let's celebrate because it's easy to feel like yeah, but that's not that great. That's not enough. And when you really take a step back and go like, okay, I didn't even have a business this time last year, and now people are like paying me a lot of money for what
Hmm.
I do. My longtime mentor reminds me that all the time. It just happened recently. I was feeling so bad about my business, like I want it to be in a different place, and he was like, "Hold on. When I met you, like, you didn't even have the business. You built this thing from nothing to like a whole thing now, and you're helping people really meaningful ways." And it was like, okay, yeah, that is helpful to like stop and recognize.
Yeah. And it is affirming when you do land a new client, like when you've signed that contract and you're starting
Yeah.
off a new project together, it is affirming because it it tells you the value that people and that they're willing to pay lots of money to hire
Yeah.
you. And so that was the whole challenge of being a generalist. When I was in my organization, people saw my value, but then when I was outside the organization, I had a hard time articulating what I did. So I always felt devalued, right?
Yeah.
But now it's like I'm meeting new people, networking with new clients, and they instantly are feeling that value. And then when I work on projects with them and deliver to them the thing that they were having an issue with, they a lot of times it's like a sigh of relief for them, because they're like a lot of my clients are looking for clarity. For instance, like they have all this data in their organization and they don't know how to make sense of it, how to organize it, how to visually present it in a way that's like easy to digest, right? And so
Yeah.
I often will build some type of container for them to hold that data and then to process it in easy ways for their staff. And for them, it's like a sigh of relief, because they're like, we've never had that information. I mean, they had that information at their fingertips, but they never knew how to make sense of it.
Well, that description right there was complete fire. And I'm gonna put that clip of you saying that online, because I'm sure it'll but see, this proves the point. As you were talking, I literally just wrote down a name of a nonprofit that I started doing some work with their leadership team just this week. And I'm going to introduce you to them because they probably have that same need, but it didn't click. Like, and I was working with you, but that didn't even click until you shared what you just did. And so that proves the point of like honing in that pitch of what's your niche, who do you help, what problem do you solve for them in a way that like it can click in people's brains. And then that makes it transferable. Now people can go share that with others and explain what you do versus the blank stare. Like, I have no
Yeah,
idea
yeah.
what he does. So I want to mention this. We don't have time to dive into it, but a big thing for you as a consultant and a project-based, gig-based worker is the pricing. And we talked a lot about how to hone in the pricing structure and the offering structure. A lot of people struggle with that, but it's different for coaches versus project-based. And I just think there's a lot of stuff there that was good things that we dialed in. How to present it in a way that is really clear to them and feels valuable to them versus pricing based off your hours and then always feeling like you're getting undervalued, but they think it's too much. And it's just like a bad cycle. So that was another win I saw for you, is like dialing how to present that and how to have those conversations.
The problem with pricing by hour that I've found is you are as a business owner, your incentive is to finish things faster, right? And so you're trying to get things done faster, but then if you're pricing by hour, you're almost shooting yourself in the foot, because
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
like, I could draw this out for 10 hours and get paid for 10 hours, but I want to get it done in 1 hour, but right. And so you see that tension there. So
100%.
yeah, what I found and what you helped me coach me through is to offer them a couple options. I tend to be very general. Like I could do a ton of different things for them, right?
Uh-huh.
And so I often start by listening what their problems are, their operational kind of or data related problems are in their organization.
Yeah.
And then I kind of hear what their needs are, what they are hoping for, what problems I can solve. And usually it's like what type of software I could build for them. And
Uh-huh.
so I tend to, after I listen, I tend to then present to them a package of like deliverables that kind of solve their needs. But I do it in a couple of ways where I present them options, because like, again, I'm usually working from like, I tend to be a new person to them where, we haven't built the trust yet. Like, and if I was to present to them, hey, $1,000 package for something, right? They might be like, whoa, I'm not ready to go from 0 to 10,000, right? It's too big
Yeah.
of a leap. And
Huh.
so like I tend to break it up. Like the first step can be like, let me do like a small package for like $1,000 or $2,000 where I'll kind of investigate your operational needs, put
Uh-huh.
together an assessment or report and say, hey, like after kind of assessing your finances, assessing your donor information, assessing your project management system, here's what I see, here are the problems I see. And then I put together a report that presents to them like, here's the 5 problems and here's the 5 things that I could do to solve those problems. And then after that, you kind of break it up into like, if you were to package together those 5 things, you could break each up into like smaller buckets and then present a price point for each of them, so that, if, for instance, it was like, I'm going to build you a budgeting system, right? You could be like, the first step is like, I will build a database for it. And then the second step is I'm going to build the reports on top of it. And then the third step is the training and documentation for your staff, right? And kind of break those up into like the first one is a couple thousand, the second one is this price point, the third one is this separate price point. So then they can sort of pick and choose what works for them, right? Because again, if you were to put it all together, right, that project might be $10,000, but to go from 0 to 10,000 is too big of a leap.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. You're an amazing human being. You're a really genuine person. You're really helpful and do great work. Like the quality of your work is really high. And so it's fun to see that confidence come through because over and over, it's like, oh my gosh, from the outside, it's always easy to say as a third party, like, why are you not confident? You do amazing work. Like, this is great. Anyone would love working with you. But we all experience that imposter syndrome. And so it's been a pleasure to work alongside you and see some of that change. And what you shared is a lot more meaningful than what I thought. Because maybe I'll just wrap with this. Like, what we talked about recently was just getting that clarity that you want to keep building your business on the side, but also acquire some kind of stable part-time gig. And the combo of those is both like fits your personality well, provides good income consistently, and also fulfills some of the passion and potential of, like what you're doing on YouTube, which we'll link your YouTube in the description, by the way, which is really great, helpful videos that can just continue to grow out there and provide client opportunities.
Yeah,
But
sure.
well, just thank you for sharing all that. It's one of those things where it'll make a huge difference in a bunch of people's lives that you and I won't even know about.
Yeah.
And I know that for sure because I'll hear those stories a lot, but also because I was one of those for sure before I started this business and as I was building it and still now, like I listen to content like this and I find people's honest stories just in a conversation are some of the most impactful things because it's not all polished and it's not like
Mm,
only telling the perfect result after the fact.
sure, sure.
Now that I'm successful, let me tell you the success. It's like hearing the journey is really helpful in a world where we're like bombarded with content of what, perfect polish. So
Sure, sure.
thank you. Thank you for sharing. Really appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Thank you, Steve.